let's just go online and I can get it sorted out.
I know.
It'll be interesting that we'll be able to do our passports soon. So, Honorable Minister, we're certainly keeping tabs on your ministry to see what happens with the Ministry of Interior today. This is something that should excite a lot of Nigerians, particularly those who are out of this country, because sometimes it does appear that the Ministry of Interior here, or even the NIS, they get the memo, but not the NIS situated within embassies. It will seem that those ones are in a world of their own, and sometimes it is very difficult to get any message because you can't go to the embassy unless you have an appointment.
Yeah.
So sometimes if your passport is about to expire as a Nigerian, they usually have a real job of work to do. I know how many times I've had to reach out on behalf of people to see how that can be sorted, and it's always with lots of questions as to what. Precisely how is it that people are supposed to, get their passports renewed? And there are so many people in dilemmas that I presently know of, whose passports may be about to expire and they have their visas on it, or their visas are about to expire and they need to renew their passport, etc. I'm talking about those abroad. So I think that this, certainly, I mean, when you talk about laggards sometimes, it might not necessarily, people don't like change all of the time, but they usually have a good reason not to like change. So let us hope that, some people will say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. In this particular situation, the passport system is broken. So it needs fixing. And let us hope that this particular solution will be something that will work for everyone. Ayo.
Well, I absolutely agree with you guys, but two words come to my mind. Number one is that of consequence. Number two is communication. We have spoken about this quite a number of times when things happen in any service whatsoever, and the most we hear at the end of the day is that, okay, well, we're going to investigate, and after the investigation, if ever, what next? Any reports? So why has this laggard, as you put it, Chamberlain, happened over the years? How do we ensure that after this minister leaves office, it doesn't return? That's one. Secondly is communication. I think a major issue, Malkwe, is in the area of internal communication. You just spelled it out quite succinctly, that at home here in Nigeria, the message gets communicated, but outside Nigeria, in the various embassies, people still queue for long hours and they do what they want the way they have always done it. Let's not forget that every civil servant has X number of years until either age 60 or 65 and at least 35 years in office. Now, those people stay longer in office than the minister, than the president, than the governor, than any appointee of government, maximum 10 years in some cases. So what kind of internal communication mechanism do we put in place to ensure that these issues are resolved in a way that they are sustainable, irrespective of who is minister, irrespective of who is in charge, irrespective of who is the head of immigration service? That and a number of other things. So those two words I consider important: consequences and communication. Back to you, Chamberlain.
Oh, yeah, when you say, how do we ensure that if he leaves, they don't go back to it? I'm trying to see how that can they ever make it stop working the way it is if he leaves? Because what is put in place is automation. You can upload from the comfort of your home. You can only go to immigration for biometrics, biometric purposes, or fingerprint or biometrics, same thing anyway.
You also hear our website is down.
Oh,
the server is not working.
Come on,
there's been no light for how long now? And they're working on this. Look,
wow.
There has to be a will, consistent will, regardless of who is there, to keep that process working. You can put a process in place, but it takes the people within that system to keep it working. I just, off the top of my head now, I just give you a scenario because it is something that has happened. As I said, I was really racking my head to remember something that you need from government that you say, oh, let's go online. There must be something. I'm still racking my... It cannot be that our government is not online.
I'm sure there will be
something.
There
will be something. There must be something.
Well, I'm still struggling to see how so many...
And that's a problem. That's a very big problem. When we're both struggling, I don't know about we're both struggling to remember one thing that we want to get from government, and you go online. And there's so much that we need to get from them. Is it your car papers? Is it your driver's license? Is it your... All of these things are things that citizens need on a yearly basis or a 5-yearly basis or 3-yearly basis, as the case might be. But hey,
let me remind you of one.
Add to that.
Let me
if
remind
you
you just
wanted
one.
to do
You can
anything
hear me.
in the same context, can we see or go somewhere, any government platform, and see this is the requirement? Customs, for instance. This is the requirement from start to finish.
To bring something in, yeah.
So that nobody, no one
is cheated.
That human interface of asking you to kick back or front, which is eliminated to a large extent. Look, nothing can be 100% perfect since you're humans involved in it. I like to concede on that one. But I believe we can do a lot better. I know that there's several people who can improve on it.
I think Ayo might remember.
You remember something?
I do remember.
I just want to remind you guys of
government service you want to get and you get it online?
I just want to remind you guys of one. Just one. For how long have you been trying to automate the ports in Lagos? And how come we're still where we are now? That and several others.
You're making it worse, bro.
Hey. So
we're looking for a bright side.
We're looking for a bright side, Ayo. You put up all the lights.
I'm sorry, but hey, if you are struggling, Chamberlain and Maokwe, you guys are right there in Abuja. If you guys are struggling, and it's not that there aren't examples. I'm very sure that some of our viewers are going to come up with one or two. But if you guys are struggling right there in Abuja, you can just imagine how many Nigerians are feeling exactly the way you are feeling right now. So if these things are possible, it's not rocket science, why are we finding it difficult? Just one example, I'm sorry. I mean, if I made it worse, but hey, let's look on the bright side.
I know. This is why people always say, thank God it's Friday, because they don't have to crack their heads and ensure that they give them difficult tasks on Monday morning or Friday mornings. But I know, I think that at least...
It's Monday, darling.
I know.
You're far from Friday.
We'll try and look for a bright side this Monday morning before the program ends. We will find it. I'm sure it's there somewhere. We will find it, I tell you. All right, let's go ahead and take you right on, taking you through some of the dailies here this morning. And we're going to start with Vanguard newspaper. Naira notes scarcity.
It's still a thing.
I thought it was over and done with.
It's not.
But it says, crunch worsens. Banks ration cash across the counter. You know what this does? When you see headlines like this, and then you're in your house, you got cash, you're supposed to pay an artisan on, just pay somebody something. There's this unconscious thing that happens. You just, wait a minute. Can I withhold some of this? Do I really want to do this?
Yeah.
You know, but look, I could be wrong, but I don't quite buy that explanation that it is POS folks that are doing this or doing that. Look, I don't subscribe to that as the main reason why this is the case. No, I don't think so. But because what's the volume of transaction that happens on that platform that will make this scarce? Some person somewhere know what they're doing to frustrate certain things. But anyways, it's part of what we'll try and see. Even though, yes, you see customers frustrated as some banks shut ATMs. POS operators jack up charges, say they are sourcing cash outside banks. Why do we do this to ourselves? You know, so why did they shut ATMs in the first instance? Are they telling us they've not gotten... How much do the banks get? CBN might need to start publishing those details. They might tell you, look, it's going to put them in jeopardy, but we have to do something.
Yeah, but how much do you used to get, you know, versus how much you're currently getting? So it's not just enough to publish what it is that they're currently being given. It's also to publish it in relation to what they were given when there was no cash scarcity.
Yeah, that's part of what I was trying to say about publishing all of these things, because how do we know that some persons may not have been taking some knee-jerk response? Because remember, before the judgments came through, that's when all of this thing started. Some persons might have thought, okay, are they going to withdraw this? What did they do with this? Let's hold on to this one. So all sorts of theories out there, but I guess we'll see. That's Vanguard this morning.
Well, look at the Abuja Inquirer for you, and they have this: how insecurity, banditry fuels overcrowding in FCT schools. Schools resort to core members, PTA teachers to bridge gap. Abuja votes 13.1 billion naira for toilets, furniture for school. Of the schools. Let me pluralize that because that's what it is. I sincerely hope that we see the furniture and that we see the toilets for these students, because really this might look like small things, but they are very, very important. It's even a shame that we're still talking about providing toilets and furniture for our schools, because those are the things that ought to be taken for granted. But sadly, even in the Federal Capital Territory, they're not things that can be taken for granted. But that's the late story on the front page of the Abuja Inquirer. You can also see the front page comment there. Better Gate, beyond rhetoric, fire Edu. That's what you find right there on the front page. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs coming under a lot of fire in recent times. Well, that's their front page comment. They're not the only ones saying it. I think Femi Falana is also saying that as well. But I think the federal government has set up a committee to investigate. You'll be seeing that on some of the other papers. Let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
Well, you guys are looking for a bit of good news. Well, there is one on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct today. CBN clears additional $61.64 million Forex backlog to foreign airlines. That's the lead story of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, and it's the details of it you'll find on page 9 of the paper. So how's that for good news? This is another one. FG approves 12 billion naira to clear outstanding payment for Super Eagles and others. The details of that you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning, and several other stories you'll find.
All right, let's take a look at Daily Trust then. Tinubu's 57.8 billion naira rice palliative raises dust. Constituents accuse legislators of hoarding. How we lobbied presidency for it. Reps. Senate silent on largesse. So, what is going on? I think I remember last time when the president they said they were going to reach the constituencies through their representatives in the National Assembly. So, what's going on with that?
Yeah, some people have seen that, from what I gather, or from what we see, it does appear that some members of the House of Reps have received that delivery. They've taken delivery of their bags of rice, but some other members are yet to see it.
Uh-oh.
Yes, so, yeah, and there are some members who have actually put out disclaimers saying, look, yes, some of the people, especially in the states that have elections coming up, they've since sent their bags of rice, but we are yet to see anything here. So if you're expecting us to deliver something to, because other people are asking questions, these things are online. Representatives who have received it are busy making videos of it and saying, don't worry, constituents. But the videos are not, located in just their constituency. So people in other constituencies will see these videos and say, hey, honorable member, where is our own rice? And then the honorable member will say, well, yes, indeed, rice was promised, but I am yet to receive it. So it is a very, very, I guess, it's a topsy-turvy situation for members of the House of Reps.
I think it will be interesting if they go ahead, again, publish using our word. Let's know who did get what. Look, because if they're denying, at the end of the day, when they resume from their research, that's the end of it. Chances are that will be the end of it. But here, on the front page, Daily Trust gives reported Tinubu's palliatives since assumption of office. So you can see all of that here. So they list it. Rice, distribution to governors for sharing in the states. That's another one. Free train service during Yuletide season. 100 million naira worth of palliatives to each House of Representatives member. 200 million naira worth of palliatives to each senator. 25,000 naira conditional cash transfer to vulnerable Nigerians. 0 customs duty and VAT on CNG conversion kits import. What's going on with that, by the way? Has anybody seen any CNG bus in operation in FCT? Any part of the country, for instance?
In Ogun State, yes. In Ogun State, remember that they had a big launch. It'll be interesting to know how that is currently operating, but I know that in some states, not some now. I'm trying to find a word apart from, because some signifies at least a significant number. I think maybe in 1 or 2 states we have heard that the governors there have bought CNG buses. I do not know what's happening in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. It'll be very interesting to get the latest update from the Minister of the FCT.
Yeah.
Will that be all for Daily Trust? Well, the New Telegraph has this, yes, focusing on what is happening in Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Better Edu, Tinubu orders probe of controversial 585 million naira transfer request. Apologize, quit. Falana tells minister. Her continued stay in office provocative, says PDP. Pages 2 and 4 is where you'll find details, but there needs to be clarity on that, because she says it was approved. Approved by who is the question. You find big details on pages 2 and 4, but it'll be interesting if this probe now has a timeline. Shouldn't there be a time when we expect that, okay, whatever the result of the probe is, we'll get to know in a week, 2 weeks? When will we get to see what? So that is it that she continues in her office, and she's exonerated, or you say, okay, you didn't quite get the process right. Isn't he the one that said that, look, if you don't do it well, or if you're not accountable, or you're not meeting your targets, you'll be made accountable and you'll be asked to leave? I think the president said that. I don't think he'll shy away from firing anybody if he's unhappy with their performance so far. But look at the bottom here. Adeboye, there's money in Nigeria, only in wrong hands. That's what you find at the bottom here. Yeah, there's money here, only in wrong hands. Jet fuel, new prices may spike cost. Airlines, others cry out. So I hope that somebody is listening there. 2024 budget, financial institutions to make 30.14 billion naira from government agencies. That's right there. Now, this is one place where an online portal might be necessary, but look at it. Police recruitment, physical credential screening of 416,270 applicants begins nationwide. How was this process done? Was it online? It'll be interesting to know. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
And flip to the Guardian newspaper this morning. What do you have on its front page? The Guardian newspaper says, FG in fiscal dilemma over high inflation, low revenue, FX crisis. Stories on page 6, because you have some infographics on the front page. Inflation rate 28.2%, gosh. And budget 28.7 trillion naira. The details of that you'll find on the inside pages, page 6 to be precise. And a number of very interesting stories right on the front page. Supreme Court affirms states have no regulatory powers on inland waterways. Stories on page 5. What does that mean? Especially now that some states are using inland waterways, transportation on inland waterways, taking advantage. Lagos, for instance, we saw it at the tail end of the morning brief this morning. A number of other stories you'll find interesting on the front page of The Guardian, including this one, 3.4 billion naira debt. Or your AG false Makinde's paucity of funds claim. What does that mean? The story is on page 3. That's The Guardian newspaper this morning.
We'll have a look at Business Day next. Nigeria's debt to hit 95 trillion naira, up 8-fold in 10 years, the paper reports this morning. FG borrows 2.9 trillion naira from CBN under Tinubu. Block tax loopholes to boost revenue, Rewane advises. And so you know that if that happens, and then all of those loopholes across board, you'll definitely have that revenue stream coming to, hopefully, the appropriate quarters if that happens. So many still looking to see the Taiwo Idili's committee, what is being done. We need to talk to people about that. I tell you, you need to, as quick as possible. Well, that will be Business Day today.
The picture there is very instructive. Leadership Newspapers has this one now. 2027 politics begins. Opposition hints at merger to form mega party. Well, I hope it remains at that level, because, we've just done politics in 2023, and I think
I don't understand this.
We should settle down to government.
Yeah.
Politicians, if they're doing whatever maneuvering they're doing, they should keep it on the down low, please. Let us get our economy going.
I don't understand why, daily should be making our daily stories when economy, people need to focus on getting life first and foremost. Then you come up with this.
Or maybe they're just trying to tell us how quickly the politicians soon, was.
Well, we know that that's what they do.
Yeah.
So
Maybe that's what they're trying to do, but look at it. Obi Atiku Kwankwanso focused on building formidable structure. Weekend's G5 reactivated, seeks support for Tinubu presidency. Loyalists pay allegiance to Rivers ex-governor. That's right there as well. And then if you look at this, EFCC took no documents, files from our office. That's according to Dangote. 5 died, 30 rescued. Anambra boat mishap. Let's hope that we'll get more safety on our waterways. And then look at this. CBN settles $2 billion forex forwards with banks. That is right there as well. We'll leave it there for leadership newspapers.
All right, so there you go. That wraps it up. We'll look at some of the dailies here this morning. Don't forget, you can also talk to us about whatever you think you got up to here. I'd like to hear from you. We're back in a moment. Stay on with us. All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, we're kicking off our focus on some of these developments that they continue to make the rounds over the weekend and up until late yesterday. So we even expect some today. So from the Minister of Information who's spoken, the EFCC that's waded in, and FG, Minister of Information, talking about what governments will do. But first, we've got Dr. Emeka Okegu here with us. He is a policy analyst. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Okay, so let's go through some of, in fact, there are just so many of these this morning. But just preceding yesterday, we had Halima Shehu, who was the CEO of NSIP, arrested and detained by the EFCC after her suspension by the president. And then they're interrogating her for this alleged 44 billion naira fraud, the multiple accounts linked to NCIPA officials. And then we understand that they said 30 billion was traced to that account. And then the former minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Sadiya Umar Farouk, invited by the EFCC for interrogation over an alleged 37.1 billion naira money laundering. She called in sick, saying that they'll try and honor the invitation at a later date. Then yesterday, that of Better Do set of approved payment of 585 million naira into a certain Oluwatoyin Maden's account, a private account, which they say the president then, the Minister of Information has not issued that statement yesterday saying they've ordered a probe. So much for Nigerians to grapple with. Of course, there are different calls that are made around as to what should happen to all of them at the same time. So you, of course, everyone, I reckon, have been keeping an ear or an eye or two on this matter. What strikes you?
Well, what strikes me is what is at the heart of this matter. That's what strikes me. It's all about people with vulnerabilities. All these monies are supposed to be used to be able to make the lives of those who are living under breadlines a little bit more comfortable. That's the striking factor here. And I mean, we are just talking about NSIP program, which is at the base of what we're talking about. I think, but there's a back end to it. And the back end might be important for us to be able to now create a proper scenario, foundation for us to discuss it further. The back end is a program that was initiated by the World Bank called the Community Social Development Program that actually led to the establishment of what they call the single register. And this was operated under what they call the Federal Operations Coordinating Unit in the Ministry of Finance. Now, it's important that we have this background. And it was under that program that you now had what they call the YESO, the Youth Employment Social Support Operations, okay, which now was now taken over by the government of, I think, President, no, was it Buhari? Yes. Yeah. And then, he went to create this new ministry and they gave them, this charge. So, and this is where it actually begins to get more saddening. Because if this is not original to us, we should have investigated or should be talking about what happened when we had YESO. What happened when it was being coordinated by FOCU? And what were they thinking? What was the letters and spirit of now transferring it to a new ministry that was now charged and given the name Humanitarian, services?
Yeah, but you missed one critical part. Before it was sent to ministry, it was under the office of the vice president for quite some time. I think about 3 or 4 years. When the I don't want to call it the humanitarian part because we had that name when it became a ministry. But the vice president ran this office, for social investment, the social investment programs. The school feeding, everything was coordinated. Transfer. Yes, everything was coordinated in from his own office. And I remember for years they kept on defending the register because a lot of senators and House of Reps members kept on probing who are the people who are benefiting from this. So it would seem that there's always been a problem with accountability. And I also heard for many years the response being that this register was not original to them, that it was the World Bank who actually came up with the register. What they've done is expand on it, they built on it, etc. And I think that's what they transferred to the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry. But inside of all of this is the issue of accountability. For many years, it would seem, even since the program started, there have been questions as to who the real beneficiaries are of this particular program, whether the people who were supposed to get the monies were really getting the money. So if you were to look at it from the viewpoint of accountability, we know not everybody will be online. Yeah. In fact, the people whom they're targeting might not necessarily be people, unless you deliberately go and track those people, you might never be able to get them to acknowledge that they actually did receive that sort of money. So do you want to speak to how you think?
No, not how I think. I was involved. Yeah. I was actually consultant for Kogi State.
Okay.
In trying to track accountability.
For which one of the programs?
YESO.
Okay, for
the YESO program.
Okay.
Because when the issue of a single register came, there needed to be verification. I had my opinion, and I made it known to the people who engaged me to say, I think I see some fault lines in the criteria of people who made or have been classified as being vulnerable. Because I do not, in my opinion, see anybody who's gotten a university or a third degree, or tertiary education as vulnerable. That was my take on it. But there was a register that could have been expanded. And in trying to track accountability, what the YESO FOCU project did was to get banks to make certain that every beneficiary opened their bank account. And I was part of that verification process. And the whole idea was to say, no matter how difficult it was, if you wanted to be part of this program, because against the first verification for the cash transfers, remember that, like you said, the Empower program that was supposed to be, dealing with people between the ages of 18 and 35, trying to give them skills and all that. And then you had, again, you've mentioned it, the JEEP, the Government Enterprise Empowerment Project, and of course the school feeding program. Against all this in accountability is actually the lack of credible data. The first and the most important thing for me at the heart of it was that you had a single register that you hadn't expanded, you hadn't interrogated well. A lot of states hadn't even keyed in. As at the time that program was moving to the office of the vice president, I believe only about 6 or 7 states in Nigeria had actually signed on to it. So it wasn't as if it had a nationwide spread. And I think it got to 16 states before it now got transferred, to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs being created then. To track accountability is to be able to interrogate documentation. That's the only way you can track accountability. And even at the point in time, the office of the vice president, was talking about defending it. You also had trader money where we saw the office of the vice president going to the market to give people money.
Indeed.
The same person. So how could you, in one breath, be saying you're talking about who are those people? In what records did you capture them?
So does that then suggest that even when it was run by the OVP and then transferred to a ministry, did you get any sense that there was proper handover of documents and data?
The first sense we got that there was a crash, there was a helicopter crash, and if stories were had, were true, there was a lot of money loaded in that helicopter, and it was supposed to be for the Empower program. Can we start from there? So it's not about documentation, it's about the right documentation. And right documentation has to be juxtaposed against data you can interrogate.
So what do we then do about, because now almost everyone who's run that ministry now, from this recent development now, the former minister, SIPA CEO, the current minister, all having questions to answer.
So let's start with asking those questions. That's what we're going to do. If you don't ask those questions, then you can't get answers. And it's out of the questions and these interrogations that you can now begin to now get what to do. And then go back to where it started from. And that's why I'm saying to you, if you Google the CSDP, it had a framework, it had an operational framework. And if you follow that operational framework, nobody was supposed to be getting any monies without being properly identified. Okay, identify vis-a-vis now making certain that, you were vulnerable, or you were susceptible to vulnerability, you were poor, okay, you needed to get that skill, because at one time, remember that the second layer was that people were now also engaged to be able to teach them skills. And against those, lectures or trainings, now they were being paid stipends. Then I think it used to be 7,500. So if you are not capturing first and foremost a name called Chamberlain Oso, Emeko Kengu, Mabe Ogun, okay, how do you now begin to now talk about accountability?
So
it's a big issue, because what we now saw was that the Ministry of the Accountant General of the Federation, is the person who said, look, I got, yes, indeed, my office received that request to pay this amount of money, but we declined because we do not pay this kind of money into individual accounts, or we're not supposed to pay it. Because if indeed that process, what she said, has been followed before now, this question's been raised about the former minister, over 37.1 billion naira allegation, and also of, I think, the person who was removed from the Insipa office, the Halima lady who was removed as well. These questions ought not to be, because due process ought to have been followed.
Well, there are two ways. First and foremost, there's what they call audit alarm. Okay, the Accountant General had no reasons to reject that request without giving reasons in writing. Okay, so her rejection seems to be this is my personal opinion, is beginning to sound more political. Because in the first place, remember that the minister is not the chief accounting officer of the ministry. Now, the question will be, was it right for her to have been the one to have raised the memo when you had the PAMSEC? And then what advice did she get from the DFA? Especially in this day and time where you now have what they call cash planning.
Who is the DFA?
The Director of Finance of the ministry.
Okay.
If you're talking about money, that's the process. Now, what vouchers were raised? What committee meetings were held? What is this supposed to be for? And again, let me say this. It might not, be the right way, but it's conventional. Pay money into the account of a ministry official is not unusual. Yes, it's not. Find out. It's not.
You mean they've been doing it?
It is not. There are program officers that you can pay monies into and they retire. So it's not that huge. We found a hit.
It's not a big deal.
No, it's not. If that person, okay, is a personnel of that ministry. However, it is under very specific circumstances and against very specific programs and timelines. Okay, some people can be giving monies to organize hotels, organize this, organize training, buy training materials. All that can be done. Now, but I'm saying that the proper thing, the proper response should have been, first and foremost, this memo is not properly couched. Because you just don't put it. I've seen that thing flying all over the social media. I haven't seen any backup document. Because usually when you make that kind of request, it is against, this is payment for A, B, C, D, B, E, D, E, and we're not, paying to these people because of A, B, C, D. Committee report A, committee report B, this, and you attach orders to give. But even at that, what the Office of the Accountant General should have done is to respond. Not through the social media to say I'm rejecting it, but to respond in writing, pointing out, those, places or extant, procedures that should have been followed. I didn't see that happen. Now, again, this is a ministry that has been immersed in a lot of struggle, as it were. The new minister comes with her own ideas. The old minister has left, some faithfuls, as it were. So it's also not impossible. I mean, we don't also discountenance the fact that this could be a struggle, for control. Control of maybe things that they don't want let out, or control of the soul and the heart of the program. So these are the two ways you want to look at it.
Dr. Kego,
yes.
When you say this is not a big deal, so you mean ministries have been doing this, whether irrespective of what the Finance Act says?
No, my word is not big deal. I say it is not unconventional.
Yeah, but internally, that means your word. It is not unconventional.
Yes.
It means it's been happening.
Okay, I'll tell you this, and I've tried to explain to you. If you are a program officer running a program, and then some money needs to be expended, there is nothing wrong with that money, that voucher being paid, raised in your name and paid into your account. But it has to be done, under very clear specifics. I mean, monies are not paid to you, and then you spend and then begin to retire. And I can give you very clear instances, okay? Assuming there's a travel, assuming there's a workshop, assuming you need to, get maybe some, and mostly this happens under the recurrent, expenditure, under programs. But we don't really know because we don't even have the full details of what these approvals are against. So it might not be very, very right, to do this slaughtering. I'm not trying to say what has happened is right, but I'm trying to say that there could be, very legitimate reasons for why it happened.
Do you think it's too early then? And those who are currently, because you can see right there, human rights lawyer, Mr. Femi Falana, saying sack the minister.
No,
do you think it's too early in the day?
That's an overkill for crying out loud. That's an overkill. I mean, what we should do is to try to get to the roots of this matter. First and foremost, like I said to you, the Finance Act also allocates responsibilities to specific officers in the ministry. And I can tell you, even here as a private organization, I'm sure you have an audit department. You just don't wake up and go to somewhere and then, Oga says, give him 1 million, and somebody gives you 1 million. There's a process. So what should happen is that we should be able to, find out. I mean, it's just one paper we've seen. What about the backup? The ministry is claiming we did the right thing.
So what about NCIPA CEO that's been suspended? Who also says, part of the narrative out there, in order to avoid this money's developing wings, we had to channel it into our own account.
That is now where the fraud is. That is now where maladministration is, clearly. Because in this case now, you are now taking the laws into your hands. You have now decided, okay, because I think these monies have been stolen. The first thing you should have done was, again, to raise another audit alarm, probably write a petition to the ICPC, probably write a petition to the presidency, probably write a petition to EFCC, probably even in writing, advise the minister. Because you are national coordinator. I mean, why would you now, in trying to, we have a party in the office, somebody is nibbled some part of a cake, Chamberlain, you carry it and go and give to your children and say, okay, keep it. I'm suspecting that the office people have eaten it. You've stolen.
But from your experience,
yes,
consulting for Kogi,
yes,
the government there.
No, I consulted for the federal government, not Kogi.
Good.
It was
federal government.
Yes.
Fine, nice. So does money just move like that?
No.
There's supposed to be a process, as you said.
That's what I'm saying. You see, in the first place, remember, the first question is who are the signatories to this account? And why would only one person? Because there is no government account that has one signatory. And 80% of the times, you don't even have chief executive officers signing checks. What they give is anticipatory approvals, and then the people who are supposed to now handle the check matters, the accounts departments, the audit departments now go to work. Now the question will be, what papers were raised for that humongous amount of money to have moved so quickly?
So could the office of the AOGF too, even though they say, well, we didn't approve the money to move first, could they be aware of this movement?
It is possible, not directly, but through their account staff in the ministry.
If they know, what should they have done? What was the standard practice?
The standard practice is to have stopped it and raised what are called an audit alarm. The standard practice is to say, what you have done is not proper, we are stopping this payment. But you just don't say that over the social media. You put it in writing, so that you can be able to guide the person.
All right, so we need to maybe, I guess they're investigating the matter, so it's part of what the people would like to hear. So if the office has spoken up about the 585 million, we also like to hear from them concerning these other ones. It's about processes and procedures. What are people doing? Who should have done what? Ayo's got questions for you.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Doctor, when you talked about the question that Chamberlain reiterated with you about people receiving government money or public money into their private accounts, please help us juxtapose it with Chapter 7, Section 713 of Nigeria's Financial Regulations of 2009, which says personal money shall in no circumstance be paid into a government bank account, nor shall any public money be paid into a private account. It says further that any officer who pays public money into a private account is deemed to have done so with fraudulent intention. That's our law. How does that marry with what you were talking about, sir?
Well, the person in question is not a private person. The person in question is a public officer. That's the truth.
Okay.
The woman quoted is a staff, is the coordinator of that program. So she's not a private person.
Well, what the information that came from the office of the minister is that fellow is the project accountant, not project coordinator or manager, as you talked about. I don't know if you think that is also in line. Line that up.
Beautiful. What is important is that...
Go ahead, sir.
Sorry. What is important is that he is a staff or she's a staff of a ministry. So she's a government operative, not a private person.
Okay. All right. So now line that up with what happened in Kogi at the time that the project was being launched previously. It's under the aegis of the Grants for Vulnerable Groups scheme that 20,000 naira each was given to the poorest of the poor and most vulnerable Nigerians in rural communities in one state. Now, what had happened hitherto is that the monies are paid directly to the accounts of the beneficiaries in these communities. What do you think changed in this regard? Couldn't it have gone the same way it normally went? Because that was your original design when it ran under the office of the former vice president.
Well, it also changed under the office of the former vice president, because we saw the former vice president also giving people cash in markets. Okay, the only time that program ran its full course was when it was under, the Federal Ministry of Finance, under what they call the FOCU, like I said earlier. And because I was part of, those who went to verify those accounts, see the people physically interact with the banks that were supposed to be doing it. And I think at that point in time, they had engaged about 3 or 4 or 5 banks, to open those accounts. Yes, there were some, issues of BVN, names mixed up and all that. That was what, it was supposed to be resolving. If we had stayed on that path and insisted that everybody's account, was captured, everybody was captured in that program, then it would have been a lot more easier. I would have avoided all this. But remember, it was an election year, and then, government needed to do probably a little more than to show that they were actually with the people. So some of those monies were put on table and they're still being shared. That was wrong. Was wrong then, is wrong now. And this is why we're seeing what we're seeing. It was totally and completely avoidable, and could have been avoided if we had just maintained, and insisted that everybody who was vulnerable, had to have an account. That's one way of building social inclusion.
Now, how about those who would say to you that this whole melee could have been avoided if the social register had been used the way it was previously? The monies were paid directly into people's bank accounts at the time, but this now 580-something million naira was supposed to be for 4 states, to be coordinated by one person, paid into the person's personal accounts. Is there a role that the state governments or state governors could have played in this regard, where the registers they were supposed to have come up with is what could have been used, or while they're still trying to put their own registers together, the federal government could have used the existing so-called faulty social register, which didn't have such an issue as it is having now?
I agree, Ayo. I agree, but again, two things must also take into context. One, the number of people that had gotten into poverty had increased exponentially. I mean, at a point in time, it was by statistics of the World Bank, we were climbing about 133 million, people and more. I remember, like I said to you, that the social register hadn't even gone up to 16 states of Nigeria. Not the World Bank didn't have it. And if our focus under the office of a vice president was, the former vice president, of course, was to expand that register, make certain that we got every state to have, a single register, I think would have avoided a lot of these problems. But ab initio, that didn't seem to be the focus. The focus seemed to be, okay, let's be able to get as much people as we can and hand over this money. So the former minister, seemed to have just, followed the trail. And then, I don't know, in this instance now, maybe the new minister is saying, okay, instead of giving money, let me give it to somebody that I can hold accountable. I'm not holding brief for her. I'm certain that she'll have her explanations to make. But point is that, yes, you're right. If you use a single register, it would have helped. But if you use a single register that does not capture, the socioeconomic realities on the ground, you wouldn't have also done much, would you?
How much of this, Dr. Kigo, would you say, is political, and how much really is intended for the purpose of alleviating poverty?
Is it the brouhaha or the program?
The whole thing. I mean, 585.2 million naira going into private account. That's what Nigerians can see and hear and read. Now, you said earlier in response to the question of my colleagues with you right there in Abuja that you read some politics into all of this. So that's why I'm asking, how much of this whole thing is politics, and how much, because the minister also said that there are attempts to smear her name. So how much of it is politics? How much of it really is intended for good governance?
I read politics. I read struggle. I read struggle for control. I read also intention. Okay, to do it a new way. So there are three issues there that we're dealing with. Of course, there's no way you can sit in that kind of, in parentheses, juicy place that you won't be able to get attacks. And it's fine, it's good, that these attacks are coming, because that way, you make the ministry and the staff, up their game and be more careful, okay, and be more measured in what they're doing. I think it also has a little to do with politics. There's no way, for politicians, one way or the other, you make political enemies who might want to bring you down at all cost. But what's important is that I also think that, yes, if run well, we have a lot of vulnerable people in Nigeria. It can also benefit people. And please, it's important that when we talk about private accounts, people can have that narrative. But what you can only have that narrative when we now are certain that this person is not a staff of a ministry. If she's a government or he's a government operative, you cannot call him or her private. That will not, that will be selling the wrong narrative. The ministry has come to say the person we paid for is an accountant or whatever, but what is important is that she is an employee of government. And that part of...
maybe they mean private in the sense that it's not government account.
Well, please read the law again. How you read it? We're talking about private. Private means you're not in government. And I'm saying to you that there are program officers, and I stand to be corrected.
Wait, you mean they consider officials of government as government's account as well?
No. If you're an official of government, you can hold government money. You can spend government money. I'm not an official of government. If that money was paid into my account, then it's a private account. But if she has a role, if she has a responsibility, if there's a program, and she's a program officer, okay, it is for her to now, it's for the ministry to be able to now show you backup documents. You just don't wake up and say, because I like you, run this program. No. Usually the way it happens is that there are sequences of meetings, of filings, of committees, of agreements, of stakeholders now agreeing that this is how it works. So there has to be that kind of documentation. If it's not there, then I think something is wrong.
Yeah, some people also say that law might need to be tweaked because it might also prevent the humanitarian ministry from doing its work, in the sense that the monies are meant for individual accounts at the end of the day, aren't they?
Well, what's important is that it could also even be, I don't know if Cross River, I think yes, I covered Cross River, but it was under another program. I don't know if they have an updated, single register. Okay, I don't know if Ogun has. I think they mentioned 4 states. Now, if they don't have, for whatever, we don't even know if these monies are meant for capacity programming, hiring of halls. We don't know. So until you get a breakdown, and this is why I'm saying that single memo and the rejection and the pronouncements from the Office of Accountant General, it might not be in very good faith. You know?
Well, the president has now instituted a probe to make sure that there is an a process of accountability that is regarding this controversy. What are your expectations of it? First, do you have confidence in it? And two, how quickly do you think we should be getting outcomes from that?
Trust me, I do. I mean, take it or leave it, like him or dislike him. President Tinubu has shown, that he responds very quickly, to both public opinion and then things that are happening around him. I mean, that's very clear. You have so many instances. I can give you 2 or 3. Remember the university's school Broha thing, how quickly he resolved it. So I think in this instance, it is for us to be able to, clearly understand what had gone wrong. And like I said, this is very clear. If we had been talking about this money being paid in an integrated whatever company limited, some consultant of sorts, then it would be a different matter. If this was paid for projects, then it would have been a different matter because you'd be talking about procurement laws. Because in the first place, if it had anything to do with procurement of goods really, not even services, then there had to be, publications as demanded by the Procurement Act. But we don't even know. You see the issue now. Anybody who's going to be castigating might be doing that, from a point of emotion. You hear, 500 something million stolen, kill, die, this. We must be a little bit dispassionate in discussing issues like this. Now, if administratively there has been some maladministration, then some measures should be taken to correct it. If there has been, maybe some evidence of administrative lack vis-a-vis not understanding the administrative process, then this is one way. And like I said, what the Accountant General's office should have done is to have written a long memo explaining the process to say, Madam, in the first place, this memo shouldn't have emanated, shouldn't have come without A, B, C, D. You may so wish to represent. That's how it's done. I mean, no money has been stolen, as far as I'm concerned. I don't. If they didn't approve the money, then nobody took it.
But they're investigating the 37.1 billion from the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and I think 44 billion from the INSIPA CEO who's been suspended. So we're waiting to see what the AFCC comes up with at the end of the day with those ones. And some viewers have responded quickly. They said, did you say the VP was handing cash directly to people?
I saw it on TV, the trader money thing. Didn't it happen?
Okay, we'll check on that because some are saying, well, they're not sure they saw that directly, but we'll see. All right, Dr. Emeka Okegu is a policy analyst. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Pleasure, it's always a pleasure and honor to be here.
We're back in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sunrise DDS. We're turning our attention now to food security, the Agric Ministry. And so that's why we've got Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, Minister of State for Agriculture. He's here in the studios. Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Chamberlain. I'm Makwe.
Well,
it's a pleasure to see you once again.
I think it's almost a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since we saw you last your days in the Senate. And so interested now. How is this ministry? So how are you fitting in?
Well, interesting. Alhamdulillah. We are on ground and we're trying our best to do the work Mr. President has assigned to us.
But a lot of people expect so much across board different ministries, including yours, because we know how important food is. I mean, if you don't get it right,
we know about this because the first priority out of the 8-point agenda, the number 1 is food security.
Oh, nice.
So at least that is not lost on us, and we are working very hard to make sure we live up to the expectation.
When you say you're working very hard, precisely what would you say you're currently doing?
Well, thank you very much, Makwe, and maybe let me say Happy New Year to Nigerians. Actually, when we came on board last year, what we did was we spent the better part of the first 2 months receiving briefings, trying to understand what exactly is happening on ground, where the ministry is, what they are doing, and what is working, what is not working, what are the challenges, and how we are going to be able to bring all of this together and align it to the Renew Hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. And of course, it became much easier for us because Mr. President's vision is very clear. At the very first Federal Executive Council meeting, he unveiled his 8-point agenda. And the very first one on that 8-point agenda is food security. And then the other component of it that is very relevant to our mandate is the economic growth and job creation, then the poverty eradication, and then, of course, inclusivity, among others. But these very ones, and then access to capital, these are the ones we, analyzed and saw that it is relevant to what we're going to be doing. So having achieved that, what we did was to sit down with the ministry officials and to sit down and begin to look at areas of alignment. So it was after the areas of alignment that we now unveiled what will be our focal areas in the next 4 years, sometimes October last year, along with my colleague, Senator Obakar Kyari. So having done that, we are actually beginning to now begin the process of implementation. But if you also recall, in that unveiling of our focal area, we provided the immediate, the ones we call immediate, which was up to end of December. And it is in this that the dry season farming, which we have already commenced, was captured. Now, starting from this year, of course, the budget has been signed, and we're yet to get the details, but the entire concept of what we have provided in our budget is actually to begin to work out how we're going to implement those things we have identified in our immediate short term and then medium term and some component of even the long term.
You spoke about 4 focal areas. What are they?
Well, the focal areas here are specifically looking at how we're going to align the existing programs in terms of value chain development, in terms of seed production, in terms of processing, in terms of, that is across both crops, the livestock, fisheries, and even the aspect of input. So in all of this, we're looking at then at different, layers, so that at the end of the day, what we want to see is to drive production. But beyond driving production also, we need to drive processing. And in doing so, we'll be reducing things like post-harvest losses, which we know is a major problem for many of our farmers. And in terms of the production, our focus right now is on the food security commodity, or the staples, as you want to call them. And I think if you listen to Mr. President's New Year, speech, he also alluded to those things, because those are the clear directions he has given us.
Well, I want to drill down a bit, but I also want you to. Okay, let's drill down now, because I know that the Ministry of Agriculture does not have land of its own. Maybe the only land that the federal government has is that right here in the Federal Capital Territory. Every other land the Ministry of Agriculture is hoping to work with are located within the states.
Yeah.
So precisely how, because you've spoken about value chains, seed production, process, how do the states come into this plan, the states that actually have the land?
All right. You see, when the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is having a program, we have critical stakeholders, and the state governors or state governments are one. Then we also have the various commodity associations and private sector operators. What we do here is we have a meeting. On the basis of that meeting, there will be a plan that will be worked out. Now, let me give you an example of what already is on ground. The National Agricultural Growth Scheme Agro Pocket Project, which is under which we are promoting the dry season farming. We started with the wheat program.
But what did you call it again?
National Agricultural Growth Scheme, Agro Pocket. It's African Development Bank, policy support funding to Nigeria to ensure that, because of the increasing price of food, the idea is for us to increase production so that we'll be able to bring down price of food commodity. So we've started with the dry season farming, which started in December last year.
And wheat is a priority?
Yes, wheat is one of the priorities.
Is there a reason why that is?
Yes, Nigeria currently needs about, annually we consume almost 6 million metric tons of wheat, most of which is imported. Nigeria is not producing even 500,000. So the idea is for us, and yet we have internal capacity. So that is
to produce wheat.
To produce wheat.
I know that before now. It's interesting. The current the current head of the African Development Bank, Mr. Akinwumi Adesina, tried to promote substitute wheat for cassava. That didn't quite work. I mean, cassava bread.
Yeah.
Yes,
there were a lot of issues.
Yes,
a lot of issues.
but now it didn't quite take off.
I think we're trying.
Have we abandoned it completely?
Well, that issue is being reviewed because cassava is also one of the staples we are producing. It's part of our food security crops. So, but right now our main focus is what do we do with wheat, and the reason why we're emphasizing that is because this is the wheat season. Wheat has its own period. If you miss it, then it's gone. So generally agriculture is time bound, so you don't have to miss it. So what we have done now, you were asking earlier, how does the state government come on? So what we do here is we identify for each commodity, we know the states that have the capacity to produce it. So, and in Nigeria today, the wheat producing states are 15. All the northern states minus Nasarawa, Benue, Kwara, and Kogi. 15 of them. All the others, they have pockets of areas where wheat is being produced. So having done this mapping, we sit down and identify the hectareage that is possible. Now, in doing that, the various state governments have been coming forward to show us their interest and their willingness to participate. And I think the one that came out very strongly is Jigawa State. Perhaps because they have the largest available land for such exercise. And their farmers are not new to such type of production also. So Jigawa State contributed almost 40,000, but just 2 weeks...
40,000 hectares.
40,000 hectares. So just Friday, the governor visited us in the ministry to see the two of us, Senator Abubakar and myself, and he informed us of the fact that they are surpassing even 15,000 hectares based on other people who are outside the state government's own, what do they call it, but are also producing. Like the flour mills, they are producing 5,000 hectares, and then there are other people with pockets of their own farmlands, which added up will take us to about 50,000 hectares.
Okay, so priority crops, just quickly, Timberlake, you've mentioned wheat. What other crops are we looking at?
The other crops we're looking at is rice, maize, cassava, millet, sorghum, soybean. All of these are the critical food security crop. And then, of course, in that, you can also put yam and maybe potato, sweet potato, Irish potato. Those are the crops that combined together are the critical food security crop. From different parts of the country, their diet is around these commodities. But in terms of the program that I mentioned, the interest is on wheat, maize, rice, and cassava. That's for the NACS AP, which I mentioned earlier.
What is the government's thinking about impacting on the prices of food?
Government thinking is actually to provide that food security. And here, when you say food security, you are saying that that situation where all citizens are able to, on a continuous basis, have access to food that is affordable, they can afford to buy, is accessible to them, and in the right nutritious content on a continuous basis.
But we know that, clearly, several people have been warning that we will have food shortage this year because of the activities of terrorists driving farmers away from their farms. And so it's clear that that will happen. What is the ministry doing about this?
Well, I think as a response, that explains why we're trying to maximize available opportunities like the dry season farming. So areas where there are no terrorists and they have farmlands and they can go into irrigation, we are supporting them to go into irrigation farming. We kickstart wheat in February. Right now, preparations are in top gear for maize, rice, and cassava. So in the next 2 weeks, when all of these preparations, stakeholder meetings, which you asked earlier, this is how the various state governments come on board because they are stakeholders, so we have to engage them. And in the process, they provide the farmers to us. They tell us we have so number of farmers and they have so number of land. So all of this is right now taking place for rice, maize, and cassava. So immediately we're able to do that. Sometimes in February, hopefully we should be able to, roll out that particular production. Now, the whole idea here is to bring all our productive areas into operation. Now, this year also, thinking about the reduction in areas where farmers are able to farm because of the banditry and terrorist activities, we asked one simple question. There are many government agencies that have lands, universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, federal government colleges, and the like, our research institutes. So right now, since last year, we've asked them to submit the available lands to us. Any moment this year, because it's going to be part of this year's project. So if the budget is finally, the details are provided to us, one of the activities we intend to do is to validate those things they said they have. The idea is to prepare all of this towards the next rainy season so that most of these redundant, farmland or fallow land can be brought into production to cover up for the loss in those areas where there are security challenges.
Ever since the government announced the state of emergency in the food agri sector to avoid shortages, what has changed?
Well, what has changed is the fact that, of course, Mr. President did that in July. What has changed is that he has 2 ministers who he has given the responsibility of driving his agenda for the sector. What has changed is that he has prioritized food security. Because if you check the Constitution, definitely food security is non-negotiable. And so Mr. President has placed it to where it ought to be, in the front burner. And for us, what we want to bring is a new direction. A new direction in which genuine farmers who are truly tilling the land are going to be the ones getting the right support.
Was it going to portfolio farmers before now?
Absolutely, you are right if you say so. Because
for
all we can say, some of the programs that have happened before, people will come because you see the support. When the support is being packaged, the support is being packaged targeting number of farmers. So what we are saying now is that we don't want to target number of farmers. We want to target the hectareage because it is in the land they are going to produce. A farmer can decide, if you are looking at human beings, you can have 1 million farmers, but do they have 100,000 hectares of land?
So you go to the hectare to check who is where?
That is what we are doing now. As part of one of our projects this year, we are taking the issue of agricultural farmland data very seriously.
So if I have a farm, how do you reach me?
I'm telling you, that is what we are taking very seriously. Now, technology is going to aid us to do that. And let me give you an example. Right now, as we speak, the reason why Jigawa State is able to provide this 40,000 hectares is because Jigawa State is already doing that. So what we want to do is to bring this new thinking across the board. And of course, through the instrument of the National Council on Agriculture, we intend to ramp up this issue and see how other states, because many states are actually trying their best around this area.
This point you made, Senator, we had a farmer here. Guys, I don't know if you remember, he's a banker. He used to be a banker, I think, with the First Bank.
Okay.
He retired. He runs a farm somewhere in the southwest states. And he says government's presence is zero.
Yeah. He's right if he says so. Because the issue is simple. When you don't know where the farms are, when you don't know the farmers, definitely, when you say you have a support you want to give, people will come forward. And we've realized that it is the ghost farmers or the portfolio farmers or those people who are having access that are able to come forward to claim that I have 10,000 hectares, even for this wheat program. I want to tell you clearly, when it started, the number of hectareage people were claiming reduced by the time we sent our officers to go out to the field and to begin to verify. And that also explains why, to show how serious we are, that explains why Senator Abubakar Kyari last year, was in Jigawa even before the kickoff of the program, to see the farmlands for himself. That is the new thinking. That is what we are bringing to the table. because we realize very well that government is pumping money into the sector. Government is bringing in money into the sector, but where is the money going to? Is it going to the right? Is it going to the right people? I think that is something questionable. So what we want to do is we don't want to be caught in that web. What we want to do is to make sure that if we say we are going to plant 100,000 hectares, let's be sure that we know where the 100,000 hectares are. And in fact, we are bringing in a new way of doing this because we want to start supporting soil tests for farmers so that for every farm, this issue of fertilizer application, it's not all farms that need fertilization, and even not all type of fertilization, and even the quantum. So we want to bring in science, we want to bring in technology to help our farmers to do better and to sieve out and remove those, bad eggs in the farming, landscape, so that the genuine farmers who are truly interested will get government support. So we are going to do that. We are putting in place, in fact, from the projects we are going to, implement this year, we have projects that will begin to tell us these issues as they are.
Ayo.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Honorable Minister, what for you would be the most critical issues to tackle in order to avert food shortage in the country? Part of the issues that have been responsible for the high cost of food in various parts of the country is that of logistics on the one hand, movement from place to place, and then taxes at the various markets. Another one that has been a major issue is that of post-harvest loss by the ones that the farmers themselves have to go through. The third in that line would be that of storage of these foods, that, of course, if they are not able to store, then they lose them. Another one on that list would be that of extension officers. A number of people have said that the absence of extension officers has greatly affected our harvests in food production in the country. For you, are these significant, and how is the federal government tackling them?
Thank you very much, Ayo. Happy New Year to you. Let me say this. You are very, very right on point. Everything you said is spot on. And I will tell you that in the programs we will start implementing this year, all of these issues are going to be tackled. Let me start with the issue of extension. We realize that the shortage of extension workers is a critical issue. But is it only by having the physical, personnel that we can deliver extension services? No. Technology is making life easier now. So we are bringing in ICT-enabled extension service. It's part of our project this year, where we're going to bring in a platform that will enable farmers to have access to information they need to run their farming operations seamlessly. But at the same time, it's a mixed model, because we are also encouraging that we're going to encourage the growth of extension agents. And I think some states are already beginning to realize that. And here again, for lack of all the facts before us, let me say that Jigawa State has also told us, apart from the ones they've trained, about 1,000 last year, the governor has added another 1,200 because of the oncoming rice program. So, and I'm sure our states, the other states, because even my governor, Niger State, has shown interest in that is going to work to increase the number of extension agents so that they will effectively participate. But what we are bringing to the table is to bring in an ICT-enabled platform where all the key information that farmers will require will be put in place, and we will take advantage of the farmers linking to the social media to ensure that we are able to get adequate information across to them. Now, the other aspect of this same technology is the fact that it will afford us the ability to even provide some of this information in the knowledge the farmer understands, perhaps in the 3 major languages and any other one as the need arises. But basically, we'll try to ensure beyond English, there are other traditional Nigerian indigenous languages that the farmers will be able to also use to access this information. That is on the side of extension. Now, on the side of post-harvest, you are right. Right now, the post-harvest losses is even up to 60% in some commodities. So what we are also looking at is how we are going to increase the aspect of valorization or value addition to process some of these commodities, because the moment you are having processing of some of these commodities, it means you will be reducing their spoilage and bringing more processed products which farmers can earn income on. The other aspect is, of course, we hope that all things being equal, the National Strategic Food Reserve Program is actually being reviewed, and we'll also take advantage of that if there is surplus. Because remember, for the Strategic Food Reserve System, it is designed to modulate so that if there is glut, we're able to take in, what do they call it? If there is abundance, we're able to take in more. And then where the price is going high, we release so that, the price can be stabilized. That also is being, taken on board. Now, the other aspect you talked about, for example, the issue of, cold storage. We realize there are a lot of technologies that are on board now using solar technology so that farmers are able to use it to reduce all the post-harvest losses as a result of lack of storage. These are things that are already in our plan, and for this year, 2024, we shall begin most of these other aspects. So these are the things we are doing because we believe when we combine all of this, like you said, the aspect of logistics. The aspect of logistics also, you remember the Rural Development Department in the ministry, we are having the mandate to actually provide rural access roads. And that also is part of actually our deliverables. It's one of the targets. I can't remember exactly how many kilometers we are targeting this year, but definitely we have some kilometers we are targeting to be able to clear access road. Because most of the time, when farmers do not have access road, then vehicles find it difficult to go to their farms to bring in their produce, and that's where the losses are taking place.
Well, perhaps to answer or resolve some of the issues that emanate from the area of logistics, one of the initiatives that the federal government has supported with the states is what they call the special agro-industrial processing zones, also supported by the Africa Development Bank, which you cited the other time. Late last year, about 7 governors from the north visited the Abidjan office, headquarters of the AFDB, to have conversations around that. And we are aware that last year and even the previous year, a number of governors have been indicating interest to say, you know what, let us begin these zones. Let's kickstart them. How far with that government-enabled and private sector-driven initiative of special agro-industrial processing zones, and what are the aspirations of it in our country in the light of averting food shortages?
Well, you remember earlier on you were talking about the immediate things. That was why I was focusing on those things that we're going to do. But these are, in the long run, what we believe we should have is what you have just mentioned. It's going to take like 1 to 2 years before we can begin to see some measurable, outcome out of, this effort. But very right, the states have realized the importance of this concept and they are keen in. Right now, the project, I would say, is on course because there are a lot of steps they are taking to ensure that at the end of the day, when these, zones, processing zones are established, it is not just to establish them so that we have a, gigantic project site, but to ensure that there are farmers who serve as off-takers to be able to meet up to the demands of the operations that will be so established in this processing zone. And very rightly, almost all the states have indicated interest, which is the stage in which they are. But I want to believe that it's going to be a game changer when we finally get it off the ground.
Before I ask the next question, I'd like to piggyback on the question Mark asked you the other time about the involvement or collaboration with states. The initiative is coming from your office or from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, but these zones will be sited in certain specific states. And It is government enabled as according to what the program says, but it is something that is going to be driven by the private sector. So how is that collaboration going to work in a way that some elements do not take them over to the detriment of the intention or intendments of that project?
Well, let me say that as a safeguard, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated is actually a major player here. And of course, this platform of government is actually being innovative. They are actually going to ensure that the right thing is done. So we don't have any doubt as to that fear you've exercised, because all parties are going to be squarely involved. The private sector will know exactly what they are supposed to be doing. Government will know exactly what it's supposed to be doing in terms of its own equity contribution. So I don't think we'll run into such kind of, it's not something open-ended. I think it's something that is well packaged. It's something that is, having very clear focus of what is to be done, and with clear rules and responsibility for all parties involved. So I don't think there will be such kind of things.
All right, now part of the instruments around the SAPZ, to the best of my understanding, as at today, is that private sector is going to play a significant role in it. And not too long ago, you also, late last year, were quoted as asking Nigerians to embrace farming. And that essentially is saying that, look, the more of us that do that, the better. In fact, you cited about 50 million hectares of cultivated arable lands in the country, and that Nigerians should go out and get on this. Question that I would like to ask, that was actually from your ministry. The question I'd like to ask about that is how? Perhaps this special agro-industrial processing zones is one way in which the initiative will work in each of the states, so anyone in any of the states can apply to be a part of that SAPZ. What exactly do you mean when your ministry is saying, you and your colleague are saying that Nigerians should embrace farming? What are you talking about, and how do people get into it?
All right, thank you very much. Like you rightly said, I think what we have as, what did they call it, arable land is about 70 or 73, or some even say 80 million hectares. And out of which only 34 is currently being used. So what we're saying here is, given the renewed interest globally in transforming food system, and given our own internal capacity with a large population, the market is there. All that you need is, if you have 2 hectares, if you have 3 hectares, is for you to do the right thing in terms of good agricultural practices. That is how you clear the land, getting the right seed, applying it when you need to apply it in terms of the processes. And at the end of the day, whatever comes out of your, operation, there is market for it. I think that is why we are encouraged to tell Nigerians to embrace it. And of course, for us as a developing country, agriculture remains one of the best areas where, if done rightly, with modern technology, modern inputs and implements, I think a lot of youths and even other people who are outside the age bracket of youth can engage themselves meaningfully. And remember, when we talk about agriculture, we're talking about the value chain. From actually when you start producing, there are people who are dealing with inputs. There are people who are even going to provide services having to do with land preparations. There are people, for example, in Jigawa State, yet again, let me go back there because of the information we have. They were able to train people across various activities in the value chain. So if you are looking for people who will plant for you, there are specialists who are planters. So these are the kind of things we are talking about in terms of developing the value chain. And so at the end of the day, you can actually have 2 hectares that you are going to go into production. And at the end of the day, when you harvest, you are going to get some good profit. So this is why we are saying people should, embrace agriculture. But remember, this is crop we are talking about. There is also livestock. There is also fisheries. So all of these things are agriculture, and there are a lot of ample opportunities. But they are interlinked. For example, we are aware the poultry industry, they will be needing a lot of, what do they call it, maize. So we want to, even from this year, we want to see how we can encourage a crop of farmers whose maize farming is going to be purely dedicated to providing, as input to the, livestock, poultry feed industry. So this is why we are encouraging Nigerians. And, if you look at also the data, you will realize that 70 to 80% of our agricultural production output is coming from small-scale holders who are having 1 hectare, 2 hectares, or below, 5 hectares.
Well, this is exciting, Honorable Minister, but one of the issues that has been raised on Channels Television a number of times is that of awareness, education, knowledge base. We had reason to interview a lecturer in a university, in the Faculty of Agriculture of a university. And one of the things that we were told at the time was that students don't want to study agriculture. The language of studying agriculture remains the same. Agriculture is no longer exciting. It doesn't even sound or look exciting to the students. And the lecturers are having a hard time communicating that to the students. So we are, some will say, at risk of more food shortage, even worse food shortage in the near or far future, if the young people who are currently, that we have in our country today, are far less interested in the kind of agriculture that you are talking about, farming, large scale in every way. Perhaps the challenge now is that of how we are communicating these initiatives to the people, particularly the young people who form more than 50% of our nation today. Is there anything we can do about that?
Well, let me say, Ayo, welcome to 2024. We are yet to begin implementation of our project. But I want to tell you, by the time we start, all of these issues you've raised will be addressed. We've thought about all of this, we are aware, and we have engaged, and we've gotten facts, and we've gotten ways or ideas on how we're going to approach it. For the youth, in fact, let me even put this in context. The fact that we are reducing the number of people in agriculture is not a bad thing. It's actually going to show a growth, because what we want to see is a situation where we will have more people going into agriculture, and rather than have 10 people with 1 hectare, if we have 1 person with 10 hectares, I think that is going to be much more, in terms of economy of scale for the person, is going to be better. But this is not something that will happen overnight. And that is why we need to really go back to realize that those with 1 hectare, 2 hectares are in large numbers, and we need to give them support. Now, in terms of the youth, remember, agriculture is also moving into the era of precision agriculture, or what some people will even choose to call agriculture 4.0, whereby you are not just going to be applying fertilizer in terms of what they call broadcast fertilizing. No, you'll be applying fertilizer like, you apply drip. When somebody is sick and he requires certain amount of, fluid in his body, the doctors calculate, they know exactly what he needs, and they apply. So that type of thing is also being brought into agriculture, and that is why you are having new technologies that are guiding even irrigation. So we are aware of all of these things, and we are working towards ensuring that overall, the youth are going to play a very critical role. And by the way, I think, I don't want to be uncharitable, we need to acknowledge the fact that there are a number of Nigerian youths also who have shown tremendous interest in the agricultural sector and are doing very great things. We have a program where we have identified the fact that this kind of people are there, and we need to bring them on board to support them. All of these things you will get in the course of the year as we begin to unfold and implement the 2024 project of the ministry, inshallah.
The conversations around that will be very exciting, and I'm pretty sure that so many of them are looking to that now. But generally, trust is a currency that we need to shore up in our credit balance in the country between government and the people, particularly young people. So if we're going to get them on board all of these initiatives, the conversations that have gone ahead for decades, if you don't know someone, you won't be able to get some things. If you don't have money to bribe some people, you won't be able to get some things done and all those things. So what should people look forward to in that regard, when there are those right now working maybe with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, or perhaps a number of other ministries like that, or even agencies or departments of government? They will say, without being able to do this or do that, making one compromise or the other, they are not able to get some things done with government. Now, this initiative that you're talking about is fantastic. It's amazing. It's exciting. It has great capacity and potential for the people. But how do we insulate corruption from the system so that the people who will come can trust the process in a way that will credit you and the government?
Well,
go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. If I think I missed some part of what you are saying, but if I get the gist, you are talking about the issue of trust, isn't it? And how young people perhaps are not feeling confident that, you have to know somebody. But let me say it very clearly. For us, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has made it very clear that he really wants to take Nigeria to the next level. He wants to do something different. And I think in terms of his, antecedent, whatever he says he will do, he delivers. And I can speak for myself and my big brother, Senator Abubakar Kyari. We've been together for 8 years in the Senate, and getting this far and being saddled with this responsibility, I want to say it without any fear of contradiction, that we are out to ensure that that bond we signed with Mr. President is going to be our bond. And we are working assiduously to make sure that our area of coverage is truly Nigeria. And so every Nigerian youth who has what to offer should take it from the two of us, that we mean exactly what we are saying. When it is time, these things will be transparently done. All of these things, all we are looking for is to bring our best brains, our best hands forward. Because when you go to market to buy food, that food does not discriminate. And therefore, the idea behind him bringing this food must be non-discriminatory. This is what we have already concluded on. We are not mixing word on this, and we are dead serious about this, because we have to help Mr. President to deliver on this agenda of food security. It is when this country is food secure that all the other lofty ideas can begin to take place. Because like they say, a hungry man is an angry man. And you don't get anything good when people are angry. We realize this, and we are definitely going to ensure that we keep that bond we have signed. So I want to assure Nigerians that all programs that will be coming out from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security will be done in the overall national interest. And also, for the first time, as part of our project, we are having strategic communication in place. We realize that, like Ayo said, people need to be well informed. Agriculture is a practical thing. If you have farm, you have farm. If you don't have farm, you don't have farm. If there is a crop on the farm, there is crop on the farm. If there is no crop, there is no crop. So this is what we want Nigerians to believe, and we want Nigerians to know where their food is coming from on a daily basis.
All right, we do have some breaking news coming to you now. Former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Mrs. Sadiya Umar Farouk, has just arrived at the headquarters of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, to honor the invitation by the Anti-Graft Agency to offer clarifications in respect of some issues that the Commission is investigating. But the former minister had earlier indicated her readiness, as her lawyer says, to honor the Commission's invitation. Now, this is the EFCC office located in Jabi district of Abuja. Now, this is confirmation from her lawyer, Oladipo Okpesheyi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. So the news is the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Sadiya Omar Farouk, arrives EFCC office to offer clarification concerning her stewardship. But we do know that she was invited by the commission. She did say, well, she took ill and that she was going to appear a little later. So that now is a confirmation that that has happened. And some investigation about some 37.1 billion naira alleged money laundering while she was in office. So questions regarding that are part of what the commission may be expected to ask of her. So she's there, her lawyer also confirming that to us here this morning. I know a lot of people also talking about developments from her ministry, currently in SIPA, CEO who has been suspended, and the current Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, all having a question or two to answer about this one. So this is a developing story. I will intend to bring you more as we get them.
Indeed. We certainly be looking forward to more on that, and also send pictures as soon as we can get them. But that's the confirmation that we currently have. The former minister, is currently arrived at the offices of the EFCC here in Abuja.
Yes, indeed. So concluding moments now with the Minister of State for Agric. And so all of what you said, big questions now is the two things. First, how do we ensure corruption in all of these projects you're putting in place? No one thinks about any such. Or even if anybody's thinking about that, perish the thought, because you put in place measures. Do you have measures to ensure this doesn't happen?
Well, let me say this. You know, like I told you earlier, when we came on board, we took our time to listen to all the issues on ground. And of course, like we rightly said, we realized there has been this perennial issue of ghost farmers, fake farmers, portfolio farmers, or whatever name you want to call them. And when we came on board, the actions we took, by the time we will be analyzing what happened to this program, we will have been able to tell you the number of, will have been ghost farmers. Because in some instances, where the figure was quoted, we realized that, no, this figure cannot exist here. So that explains why we are looking at this. So one of the measures
you mean in your current findings, the figures that were quoted previously?
No, in the preparation. It's not, I won't call it finding because it's towards the preparation.
Okay.
When somebody is like you now wanting to do something, and somebody will tell you, okay, I have 200 hectares. When you know in that place, from your own understanding, there can be 200 hectares there. In the past, they get away with it. But now, we have put in place measures that no, that will not happen.
It's interesting.
Now, as part of the collaboration you talked about also, let me say that this year, we intend to put in place a collaborative arrangement by putting what we call joint agricultural project implementation committees with the states. Because we realize what is our entry point when we come to a state. We have our state directors. We have officials also of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security in the states. So what we're trying to do now is to see what we can do. Most of the lands, even though we say states, when you go to the states, the lands are in the local government. So we are putting in place measures now to make sure that at the end of the day, we'll have tax teams at the local government. When we have a program, who will work together with the farmers, with the local communities, and other interested stakeholders.
Yeah, because part of what people say is that in the past there used to be inspection officers.
Yeah.
But that no longer is it inspection or extension. Extension work.
Yeah. I think earlier on, maybe when you stepped out, I addressed that issue.
Okay, but let me quickly take you up on what your target for the year is, because I imagine, I mean, you have spoken about how what you're looking at now is no longer, what did you say now? But you're looking at hectares.
Yeah, we're not looking at the farmers, number of farmers.
Number of farmers,
because that's where we're getting it wrong.
Okay.
You see, if it's easier for you to come and say, okay, for example, when you are giving support, and you say 1 million farmers came to collect the support.
Okay, fine.
But the question is out of the 1 million, how many hectares have they gone to go and apply the support to?
It's interesting how you say you're looking at hectares, not yield.
No, I didn't say we're not looking at yield.
No.
Yield is a different entirely. It's about the people. Because when you focus on the people and say farmers, when the farmer collects the input and does not go to farm, then you have a false conclusion
Yes, but right now you are also saying that you're going to be focusing on the land.
Yes.
How much land are they going to be cultivating?
Yes.
I would have thought that you would have been coming from the end instead. Instead, how much are all of these people, plus the people, plus the inputs and the land, how much would they be able to produce at the end of the day?
That is the idea behind
it. To incentivize
Actually, that is why we are focusing on the land. When you focus on the land, that is where you can talk about the yield in terms of per hectare. Okay? And whether you are increasing or whether it is decreasing. You cannot talk about yield without an hectare. It is per hectare. That is why we are focusing on it. And we want to make sure that, because at the end of the day, it is about supply and demand. Like I gave you an example of wheat. We have a demand of 6 million metric tons. But what is the supply? So if we are going to be able to, if you come and you are telling me 1 million farmers are planting wheat, it doesn't make any sense to me. If at the end of the day, all they are able to give you is maybe 100,000 hectares.
So what's your target for the year? What's your target?
The target?
Yes.
For the year, for this particular program, what we targeted was 120,000 hectares. And in each of it, we're expecting to have 4 tons per hectare if all things are done well. But we know that cannot happen.
All right.
Okay? We know that cannot happen. Some farmers will get it right. They may even surpass even the 4 tons. Because we've seen some farmers who have been able to produce up to 6 tons. It's all about application of knowledge in terms of good agricultural practices, which we have increased. In the build-up to this program, we have actually trained extension agents. Trained the trainer who goes back to the local area to train other extension agents.
All right, just a minute, Honorable Minister. Yeah. Let's take a look at some of these issues. Oh, yes, indeed. We understand that the Supreme Court is at the moment taking a look at the governorship election appeals of Ebonyi and Benue states. So you got a 5-man panel of justices led by Justice John Okoro, the governor of Benue State, and his deputy are in attendance. The governorship candidate of the PDP in Benue State, Mr. Titus Oba, is challenging the victory of Governor Hyacinth Alia. The Court of Appeal, Abuja, had affirmed Alia's election as governor of Benue State, who was declared winner of the March 18 governorship election. The court has said that they lacked the jurisdiction to hear the petition because it was a pre-election matter. So these are some of the issues we expect to get a decision on, and those are images coming through from the court, which earlier, moments ago, as a matter of fact, we understand that there was an incident of someone collapsing in the court. So there was some frantic movement in that premises. We're going to tell you, have an idea of how that works, because I mean, lots of people remember how last time, almost the whole day, waiting for the presidential election tribunal at the Supreme Court. Lots of sleepy eyes, I tell you. I had to go to the back seat. At some point, I came back to the front seat when I thought, look, I should be able to see this through, even though I'm not a politician. They have lots of late-night meetings, so they're used to it. But unfortunately, I think I survived it at the end of the day. But right there, we'll hope that all goes well.
You can still see people fanning somebody who appears to be on the floor, and there's an attempt to try and cover what is currently going on. But if you look very critically, you see that there's somebody there who is waving a piece of paper over somebody, trying to revive somebody who perhaps has fainted in the course of today's proceedings. It's not clear if it's a politician, if it's a lawyer, or a court official. Is simply not clear, but that's what we can see for now. The matter at hand is the governorship matter in Benue State and what other state again? Benue State, and I think it's only Benue I see here, Chamberlain.
Oh, okay. No, you have Benue, you have Ebonyi, and several others. You have, yes, but there's a 5-man panel led by Justice John Okoro. So this week is going to be a very busy week for the Supreme Court. So you also have that of Lagos, which they set aside the date. So waiting to see what happens. Plateau also going to happen this week. Kano, as a matter of fact, lots of eyes and focus on that as well.
It's certainly going to be a very busy week at the Supreme Court. You can see right there the governor of Benue State, Governor Alia, or shall we say Reverend Father Alia, and to underscore the importance of what it is that, you know, the Supreme Court is going to be doing. They could either remain in office or they find themselves out in the cold, as the case might be. So it'll be very interesting to listen to the decisions of the Supreme Court as they rolled out this week.
Okay, so Senator, just wondering, is there going to be a FEC meeting today, though? Any communication about that?
Yes, we got.
Okay,
no,
so
not today. Not today.
Oh, not today. But I was wondering because I mean, all of this. Oh, okay.
When will it be then? Wednesday?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes. So did they move the time depending on availability and convenience?
I think so.
Okay, so one wonders. I mean, with all of what I'm sure you might have, some of your, at least maybe staff or so, might have brought to your notice if you didn't see it yourself. All of this commentary making the rounds about Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, the Minister of Information has also spoken up about this. Does it, when your colleagues hear these kind of things, what kind of thoughts do you give to it? Because it could come up in fact, doesn't it?
Well, for me, you know, I don't have any information officially. I was coming from the public service of myself. I was a staff of Federal Ministry of Agriculture. That's where I had all my career for 20 years. And so for me, one thing is, for everything you do, there is a line of communication. If my line of communication is not what I'm communicated with, I don't take any information I see by the side. That is the training. So within that context, I think, you know, people should just try to stick to the rule. And Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been very clear about it. He has told us what exactly we should do. And I want to see that for us in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, myself and my big brother, Senator Abubakar Kyari, we are very, very focused on delivering on our mandate. And we want to do that following the rules and regulations as much as we can.
All right. So we do thank you for coming on. Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi is the Minister of State for Agriculture. Thank you for coming on this morning and all the best to you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see all of you. Looking younger than I left. So I think we need to talk about that.
And we haven't even started with the state of emergency in the agri sector. By the time the country begins to benefit, you can imagine how good it will be. So lots of expectations of this government and your ministry, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely.
All right, so there you go. That is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Can't believe it's over already, but that's how Monday goes. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokpe Ogun Yusuf.
Should we say happy resumption to those who are just resuming? I'm Aya Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day and week.